because my black blood was basically, it wasn't red anymore. It was pitch black. It just was, and thick, 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 thick. And obviously that's also very dangerous.
Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast in partnership with Kidney Care UK, sharing faith, knowledge, hope, and love.
Hi and welcome to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. I'm your host, Dee Moore. This is the Kidney Health podcast that shares real stories and expert conversations to educate, empower, and inspire people living with kidney disease and everyone who supports them. Thank you for joining me. My guest today, joining us from Berlin, Germany, is Noël. Noël has lived with chronic kidney disease since childhood. And today, in part one, she shares how an undiagnosed kidney condition changed the course of her life, the challenges she faced growing up with kidney disease, and the events that led to her crash landing onto emergency dialysis. Before we begin, this episode shares Noël's lived experience of kidney disease. It is for information only and should not replace medical advice. If you have any concerns about your health, please speak with your healthcare professional. Hi, and welcome to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. How are you doing today, Noël?
I'm good. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm good. It's wonderful to have you on the podcast today. And everyone knows what I'm going to say because I say it every time, but I do sincerely mean it when I say I love recording Kidney Warrior story interviews because, as I say every time, but I do mean it when I say it is so powerful to learn from someone's lived experience with CKD. And I'm here to learn about the highs, the lows, and everything in between about your journey. So yes, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with my first question. And my first question is, how did your kidney warrior journey begin? And how were you diagnosed?
I was born with a reflux in my tubes that were not diagnosed. They were only diagnosed when I was 7 years old. So up until that point of 7 years, I had a lot of urinary tract infections. And because my urine was, full of bacteria, and what a reflux does is basically you in my case you pee, but part of the pee goes back up, and then it went back up to the kidneys, and the bacteria and all of that destroyed the kidneys. And because it was only diagnosed when I was 7 years old, I was by then already stage 2 CKD.
So to get a diagnosis at such a young age, and ultimately, so when you were getting these UTIs, these urinary tract infections, weren't the medical team investigating why? I mean, you didn't get the diagnosis till you were 7, but these UTIs were recurring. So didn't they do investigations when they were younger to see what was causing the UTIs?
No, they didn't. And most probably because the pediatrics were not as advanced or as evolved as they are now. So I'm not sure what they thought I had every time I had a UTI, but no, they didn't investigate. So, yeah.
So when you finally got this diagnosis about the reflux at the age of 7, did they then put some kind of treatment in place to address the UTIs or to at least try and help your kidneys to recover in any sort of way?
No, the decision was straight away to operate. Yeah, they wanted to straighten the tubes. Once it got diagnosed, it all went like quick. In terms of the UTIs, they didn't really do anything. And I should maybe also mention I was only operated on one of the tubes, which is also a safer thing to do just in terms of, the exhaustion for the body. But they also did something, and I'm not quite sure what it is called in English, but when you do urinate, there's this muscle that opens up and closes. And they could see that there's also something going on there. So they cut a little bit there as well, which then caused me to, at the age of 7, to restart peeing myself during the night, which also lasted for quite some time, and which is obviously also not the easiest, when you already kind of, you're happy that you don't need diapers anymore, and you have to start using them at night again. But they did nothing against the UTIs. They went on.
I can only imagine how difficult that was for you, having to deal with having to wear pads at night when at that age. So in terms of then, were there any other impacts on you physically with your health because of your kidneys?
In terms of my health, I mean, I had to be extra careful when it came to, like being cold or getting cold. And to be honest, it was more of a psychological thing that I experienced, because with stage 2, you are not as affected by the kidney disease as you are when you are at a later stage. But because it was at a time where pediatric kidney care wasn't as evolved, I was also a little bit of a guinea pig. They tried all kinds of, exams just to, also, further their knowledge, So I underwent quite a few just taxing and exhausting exams, and also scary ones, where, I mean, yeah.
So I know that your kidney function went into decline. So when and how did that happen?
So for most of my younger age and then also early adulthood, I was fine and not too affected. And I mean, but I also always had the UTIs. So they never went away. And they were at times really aggressive. Also, I remember a time in my early 20s where I think for 2 years they just wouldn't disappear. And I took so much antibiotics. I mean, I always did, even as a child. But then at that stage, because there was basically no break of those infections, I took it more or less every day. It was up to a point where my stomach, my tummy just couldn't take it anymore. I had so much pain, and it was really horrific. And that's also when I decided, or not just me, it was also with my mum together, to, try also other treatment options just to get away from the antibiotics, like more alternative ones. And I mean, obviously never just, you can't, I'm not promoting to not take the school medicine because it's important, but just to give my body a break, So then at least my stomach was able to recover a little bit. And by maybe my then late 20s, early 30s, the UTIs kind of, regulated themselves in a way. I still had them regularly, but not as intense as before. So I do think that the alternative medicine also, really helped me. Then by the age of 39, maybe that's when I really started to feel the decline. So if you do the math, so to speak, it was basically 32 years where I was okay, in terms of the kidney, in terms of what the actual effects of kidney disease are, which is, I mean, as you also mentioned in podcasts before, quite common with kidney disease, that you only start to really feel it when, it's really up there and the decline is really, really bad. So yeah, 39 was when I could also feel myself, something is not as it was before, and I just started being more weak. I had like more, not that I fainted, but just more dizziness, more vertigo. Just like the extremities always being very, very cold, which is like a huge effect in terms of the kidneys.
So, as you started to feel these symptoms and your kidney function was going further into decline, did they then try to, any form of medical intervention, any form of treatment to slow down the decline of your kidney function?
I would say yes and no. So maybe from, from the age of 35, I took this medication here. It's called Bicanorm. It's like a natrium-based drug that balances the O2 in the blood, and in that way helps slowing down the progression. But I mean, they always told me, and I also always knew, that dialysis is basically where I'm heading towards. To be honest, when they detected or diagnosed me, they basically told me and my mom, I mean, it was in front of me, that I probably wouldn't make it to puberty. So the fact that I, by then was already 35 or around 35 was definitely, I mean, unexpected. So yeah, so I took that. But other than that, it was basically, this is what's going to happen. Your kidneys will decline and there's not much we can do.
I can't believe that the doctor said that in front of you at such a young age. And I really am sorry that you went through that, because I can't imagine how painful that was to hear that from a doctor. And I really do believe that we need to continue having these conversations to raise awareness, because, sensitivity and empathy is so important. And especially when you're in front of a young, impressionable child that's taking, everything you say as a medical professional on board, we really need to be sensitive and empathetic in what we say. So yeah, if there's any medical professionals watching, we really want to encourage you. Please remember the person behind the diagnosis. We're people first, and especially children. Let's be sensitive and caring with our language and what we say, how we say it, and when we say it to people.
Yeah, definitely.
So, as your kidney function was now declining further and you were experiencing these different symptoms, did they then make a plan towards dialysis?
No, they didn't. So what happened was, it went on for a couple of years, and then by the age of 39, that's when it really hit me physically as well. It's when I started to really feel weaker, and also that brain fog was hitting me, and also my legs got weaker. And because I'm also anemic, which also obviously became worse, they put me on a medication um, to enhance the level of the red blood cells. And what happened there was that I was supposed to take it every 3 weeks. So it's an injection that you take. Oh, in my case, I took every 3 weeks, but they didn't tell me to stop it. So I went on taking it. And obviously, because it's a stimulation for the red blood cells, it produced too many red blood cells. And how I realized that my blood pressure shot up, and I got completely, I can't even really explain it, but just like my whole body felt so bizarre. And so I had to go to the hospital, like urgency, and they had to, I'm not sure about the English word, but it's when they take blood, but they take an extra big amount of blood so that it thins out your blood. Because my black blood was basically, it wasn't red anymore, it was pitch black. It just was, and thick. And obviously that's also very dangerous, like, because the blood circulation is not as it's supposed to be. And I was in hospital for, a couple of days. It was also during the first confinement of COVID in Berlin. I think it was the whole of Germany. And at that stage, my creatinine was, I think, 7. So it's really high. And I remember the doctor saying to me that there's no need to take any action. I can still be okay with this high of a creatinine without, needing any dialysis or any, extra medication or whatever. Obviously, I was relieved, but thinking back, one could have prevented some of the things, that happened afterwards.
So, just to explain for those watching and those listening, in terms of how creatinine is measured in Germany, it's slightly different. So, the normal range is 0.5 to 0.9 in Germany. So, obviously, 7 is very, very high, because for anyone listening, they'll be like, my creatinine was way higher than 7. So, just to explain the difference. So touching on that, then, having such a high creatinine level, and then the doctor turning around and saying, "Oh, you'll be fine." I mean, I can't understand why I mean, this was a nephrologist. It wasn't like a general doctor that made that statement.
It was I'm not sure if it was a nephrologist, but I mean, it was a doctor for internal, organs. It wasn't a GP or something like that. No.
This is why we continue to raise awareness. I mean, who's to know the difference it could have made having intervention at that time for your quality of life or the outcomes. So, how long then was it before you did go on to dialysis, before you did get some kind of treatment to help with this?
Yeah, I mean, it was 4 or 5 months. That's when then it was end stage. So yeah, no, I just left the hospital, and I obviously continued my checkups. But yeah, nothing in particularly was done. And basically what happened then is that I just, my health really declined, also not just in terms of my kidneys, but even with the brain fog and the my ability to walk. At the end, I was almost not able to walk properly anymore. And the just noises and too many voices, light, I couldn't handle anymore. But I have to add, even then, I remember one day going to the hospital urgency again. Emergency, maybe better to say in English. Yeah, I even remember I overheard one of the care workers there saying something really belittling in terms of like, yeah, I wonder why her kidneys are so bad. She probably took lots of drugs or something like that. And, like, because why would she have such bad kidneys otherwise, And it was horrible. But still, they sent me home. Yeah, it was. And again, you are kind of relieved, because you want to push that thing that's somewhere there in the background blurring, you want to push it back, But at the end of the day, they should have, done something, because what happened then is that it had to go like this. I had an appointment with my doctor. I still took the tube to go there, but it was a horrific ride. And then when I arrived there, he basically said, okay, I'm going to call the ambulance and you have to go straight to the hospital. And then the next day they put in the catheter here and they started dialysis.
So essentially, then you were put in the position of crash landing onto dialysis because there was no preparation, no fistula formed, anything like that. So you ended up having to have a tube fitted or a line fitted in your chest for emergency dialysis then because there wasn't this plan. So, I mean, to go through all of that without the medical intervention and preparation and support, what was that like for you? What were you going through at that moment when you had to? I mean, as someone with a line myself, I know how difficult it is, but I mean, how was it for you then having to have this procedure to start dialysis?
It's complex, huh? I mean, I don't think I was quite present at that moment. I was very much in a state of shock. But at the same time, and I mean, people on dialysis, I think they can relate, you feel the positive effects of the dialysis, because you feel how your body is getting rid of all those toxins that had built up. So it's a bizarre thing. And in one way, I was, in a state of shock. And at the same time, my cognitive abilities and also the strength in my, in my body came back, So it was shock and relief at the same time. But yeah, as you said, I mean, bit more of preparation would have done a lot.
So, as you then started dialysis, started feeling the benefit of dialysis, did they then make a plan to form a fistula? What was the plan from this point?
Usually they kind of do the tube here and the fistula at the same time, so that you don't have to, do dialysis through the tube for too long because of, of all the risks. But I had well, she is still my friend, but my friend, she suggested to get herself checked and if she can maybe donate a kidney. So they waited, also for my benefit, if you so will, to with the fistula.
So, your friend came forward as a living donor. Were you able to have a living donor transplant, or did you have to go down the deceased transplant route?
Yeah, she was not able to donate, also because, and I mean, that's also a big topic actually, um, where she's from, the country where she lives, there's not an easy access to healthcare. You have to basically have lots of money to have good healthcare. And so it was too risky for her to donate and then maybe at the end herself ending up to need special or more care, and then not being able to afford that. So at the end, we decided, not to go forward with it. But still, it's just to have someone offer that to you is such a big gift. It's amazing. Yeah. Especially in that moment where you like in this, I don't know what's going on with me here right now. It's like this, it's like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like a light, in all that.
So I know that you went on to have a kidney transplant. How did that come about? And that's where we'll leave part 1 of my conversation with Noël. Join me in part 2 as Noël continues her remarkable kidney warrior story. Part 2 is available right now, so simply click on the next video to continue watching. If you found this conversation helpful, please give this video a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. It really helps more people discover the podcast and supports our mission to educate, empower, and inspire. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care and choose to live.
Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast in partnership with Kidney Care UK, sharing faith, knowledge, hope, and love.